Welcome, sleepy traveler. You've arrived at a quiet space made just for you. My name is Valarie, and I am here to guide you gently into rest, to help ease your mind, soften your body, and drift you toward a peaceful, uninterrupted sleep. Whether your day was long or your thoughts feel a little too loud tonight, let this be your permission to slow down, to breathe, and to simply be. There's nothing more to do now. Just allow my voice to be your guide as we begin this gentle journey toward deep, nourishing rest. If you're new here, subscribe for sleep content like this, and like this video if you find it enjoyable. Let's begin. Let this moment be just for you. There is no need to rush. No need to be anywhere else. You are here now, in this quiet space, and everything around you can pause. Close your eyes gently if they're not closed already. Let your body settle into stillness. The bed beneath you is soft and supportive. It's here to hold you, like a quiet cloud made just for you. Breathe in slowly. And let it go. With every breath, feel your body grow heavier. Each inhale bringing calm. Each exhale inviting release. Let go of your shoulders. Let them drop just a little. Let the muscles around your eyes soften, and the corners of your mouth fall into ease. You've done enough today. Now is your time to rest. Let that idea sink in. This moment, right now, is just for you. Allow your breath to find a natural rhythm. Not forced, not held, simply easy. Inhale through the nose. And exhale gently out the mouth. Feel your body respond to that rhythm. Settling into its natural wisdom. Let your thoughts slow down. There's no need to follow them. Let them float like autumn leaves across a still pond. Notice them, then let them pass. With each breath, feel your chest rising and falling. A gentle wave, moving at your own pace. Inhale peace. Exhale any tension. There is nothing you need to fix. There is nothing you need to figure out. This space is for stillness, for quiet, for rest, for letting go. Imagine now a soft light beginning to glow above you. A gentle golden light, warm and comforting. It floats above your body and begins to wash over you slowly. Starting at the crown of your head. It melts downward, relaxing your scalp, your forehead, your cheeks. It moves down your neck and across your shoulders, loosening any tightness there. It travels along your arms, all the way to your fingertips. You feel the light as warmth, as ease, as love. Let it flow into your chest, where your heart beats gently. Let that rhythm slow and soften. Feel it flow into your belly, down your back, and along your spine. Each vertebra softens with light. The tension unwinds like thread. Now it flows into your hips, your thighs, your knees. Let your legs become heavy, heavy and warm, completely at ease. The light moves all the way to your toes, and you are glowing now, radiating stillness. You are safe here. You are exactly where you need to be. There is no right or wrong way to rest. Just let it happen. Let your mind become soft. Like petals floating on a quiet breeze. Let the world around you blur and fade. It doesn't need your attention right now. You've given so much of yourself today. Now it's your turn to receive. To receive calm. To receive peace. To be still. Feel your breath again. Notice how easy it is. You are already moving deeper, drifting, floating, resting. You may begin to sense that lovely in-between space, that twilight feeling between wake and dream. It's okay to float there for a while. No effort. No expectations. Only stillness. If thoughts arise, smile softly at them. They're only passing visitors. They'll move along on their own. Bring your attention back to your breath. Back to the warmth in your body. Back to the softness in your heart. Let your inner world open up. Quiet, dreamy, glowing. It is safe to go inward now. Imagine yourself walking along a soft path. Barefoot and light. The stars twinkle above you. The breeze gentle against your skin. Each step carries you closer to sleep. The air smells of lavender and rain. You feel comforted, as if the night itself is embracing you. With every breath, you move further into peace, deeper into your body's wisdom. Trust it. It knows how to rest. It knows how to let go. All you need to do is be here. Let your eyelids grow heavier. Let your thoughts grow dim. And let yourself slip into softness. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be held by the quiet. You are allowed to sleep. Notice the stillness growing deeper, the way your breath slows, the way your heart settles. Your body is resting now. Your mind is softening. You are floating. The day has ended. And now you are safe in the arms of the night. Let sleep come when it's ready. For now, just be. Just breathe. Just rest. And as the final bits of wakefulness dissolve, allow yourself to surrender. And enjoy tonight's bedtime story. They say every dog has a bone, but I'd argue every dog should also have a window seat. Mine is wide enough for me to sprawl, tall enough to see the whole path leading to the meadow, and soft enough that when I curl up, my ears flop like little pancakes over the cushion. On sunny mornings, I snooze there with my paws in the air, dreaming of chasing butterflies that I'll never catch. But on rainy afternoons, that's when the magic begins. The world outside turns watery and wobbly, as if the trees and fences and little garden gate have been painted with a brush dipped in puddles. The glass becomes a racetrack, alive with travelers who are, admittedly, very small and very drippy. Raindrops. Now I know what you're thinking. Bramble, they're just water. But to me, they're more than that. Each raindrop has a personality. Some are bold, dashing down the pane like they're late for an appointment. Others are shy, clinging to the glass until a bigger drop nudges them along. And then there are the adventurous ones who zig and zag, sliding sideways like they're dancing. This afternoon, as the clouds grumbled and the cottage roof pattered with steady music, I pressed my nose to the cool glass and watched the drops. "Who are you?" I asked them, my voice a soft woof that only the window and I could hear. The first raindrop, a plump one racing from the top left corner, answered in my imagination. "I'm Captain Rush, explorer of slopes and seeker of the fastest route." He darted down, collided with another droplet, and together they zoomed even faster, like sledders on a hill. The second one, slower and rounder, had a gentler tail. "I'm Naptime Nell. I like to linger, to stretch my journey as long as possible. Why hurry when the view is so nice?" I chuckled, resting my chin on my paws. "Good point, Nell. I'm quite the fan of naps myself." One drop meandered in a curious loop, as if unsure which way was down. In my mind, she whispered, "I'm lost, Lila. I keep forgetting which way I'm supposed to go." "Downward is traditional," I advised, wagging my tail against the cushion. "But wandering works too." The rain thickened, and soon the glass was alive with dozens of little voices. Each one had a story, small, silly, and splendid. I imagined them whispering as they tumbled. I was part of a cloud shaped like a rabbit. I fell from the very edge of the storm. What a view! I traveled all the way from the mountains. I've seen pine trees taller than castles, their stories wove together like a patchwork quilt, comforting and lively. I felt as though I were hosting guests in my cottage. Not furry neighbors like rabbit or hedgehog, but shimmering travelers from the sky. And oh, how their tales made my own thoughts wander. I began to wonder if perhaps each raindrop carried a secret. Maybe one held the memory of a picnic where children laughed on a summer afternoon. Maybe another carried the hush of a forest glade where deer tiptoed through ferns. Perhaps one even held a forgotten song, ready to hum if I listened closely enough. The rain tapped a steady rhythm, and I gave in to the game, inventing stories for them. "That one," I said aloud, pointing my paw at a drop that streaked straight and true, "was once a knight's tear, shed when he left his village." Another drop wobbled side to side. "And you? You must have been laughter once, bouncing from leaf to leaf." I wagged at my own silliness. But the best part of rainy afternoons is that no one interrupts. My friends were snug in their own burrows and nests, and I was free to let my imagination wag as much as my tail. The rain grew heavier. Soon the whole window was a web of rivers, drops merging into streams. It looked like tiny silver roads leading somewhere marvelous. "I wonder," I mused, "where do you all go after the race?" "To the garden," said Captain Rush, sliding off the sill. "To the herbs," added Naptime Nell, drifting lazily down. "To the earth," whispered lost Lila, who at last found her way. I pictured the drops joining puddles, watering roots, filling little hollows where birds would drink. Perhaps they would vanish into the soil, only to rise again some day as mist, Maybe, just maybe, I would see them again on another rainy day. The thought made me smile in the doggy way, with ears perked, tail wagging, eyes warm. My cottage smelled of damp leaves, and the fire crackled softly in the hearth. Behind me the kettle puffed steam. Yes, I know how to manage a kettle. Don't ask how. A dog has his tricks. Soon I would steep chamomile, the kind that makes me yawn and flop into dreams. But for now, I stayed at the window, nose fogging the glass, watching the drops tell their tales. One in particular caught my attention. He was small, almost invisible but determined. He clung stubbornly near the top, quivering as though afraid to fall. "Hello there," I whispered. Why so hesitant? In my mind he trembled. "I'm brave, Benny. At least I'm trying to be. I've never fallen before." I nudged the glass gently with my paw. "It's not so scary. Everyone falls, and down there the garden is waiting. You might nourish a flower." He shivered, then finally let go, sliding down in a wobbly line. When he reached the bottom, he vanished into the sill's edge. I thumped my tail in approval. "Well done, Benny." The rain continued, and I grew dreamy with it. I thought of the garden glistening with all those raindrop stories. I thought of puddles filling with tales from the sky. I even thought of tomorrow, when the sun might return and the drops would sparkle like diamonds on the grass. And then, as dogs often do, I drifted into a nap without meaning to. My eyes closed, ears twitching to the rhythm of rain, and I dreamed. In my dream, the raindrops were as tall as I was, each with a face and a voice. They gathered in my cottage, dripping politely onto the rug. They told me grand stories, of rivers they longed to reach, of clouds they once called home, of journeys across mountains and seas. I listened with all the seriousness a dog could muster, nodding, tail wagging softly. They seemed grateful for someone who cared to hear. When I woke, the fire had dimmed to embers, and the rain was lighter, like soft footsteps instead of gallops. The window pane was dotted with only a few stragglers. Captain Rush, Nell, Lila, Benny, all gone to the garden now. The cottage felt very quiet, but in my chest it was warm, because I knew I hadn't just watched raindrops. I'd shared an afternoon of stories with them. I stretched, ears flopping, and hopped down from the window seat. My paws padded softly to the hearth. The kettle was still warm, and I poured myself a cup of tea, inhaling the soothing steam. "Until next time," I said to the window, raising my cup in a toast. "Bring me new stories when you return." And I swear, though perhaps it was only the wind, I heard the faintest patter in reply. There are afternoons when the world outside my window feels like a library, and the raindrops are its books. Today was one of those afternoons. The rain had grown heavier since morning, drumming steady on the roof, tapping on the glass as if begging me to listen. I curled myself deeper into the cushions of my window seat, nose pressed close, eyes wide, ears floppy against the fabric. At first, I simply watched. The drops began to gather and trickle, weaving little rivers across the pane. Some dashed straight, some hesitated, some looped and swirled as though they had forgotten which way was down. And as I followed them, I began to see not just water, but stories. One drop slipped from the very top corner, slender and steady, sliding downward like a traveler on a long road. In my mind, I saw him clearly, a small wanderer with a walking stick, cloak flapping, whistling to himself as he strolled along. "Ah," I murmured softly, "you're a brave one. Where will your road lead?" The traveler didn't answer, but in my imagination I filled in the tale. He would wander through fields of grass taller than himself, stop to rest at little cottages, and find friends in every village. Perhaps he was searching for something, a story, a song, or maybe just the joy of moving forward. Not far from him, two drops meandered slowly on different paths. For a moment, they looked as though they would pass each other by, but then, with a sudden tilt of the glass, they slid together, merging into one shining bead. "Oh ho!" I wagged my tail against the cushion. Two friends meeting on the road. I pictured them as cheerful travelers. Perhaps an old rabbit and a young squirrel, one telling jokes, the other listening with wide eyes. They walked side by side, sharing snacks from their packs, pointing out odd-shaped trees and peculiar flowers as they went. Their journey would be longer now, but warmer too. Another stream caught my eye, a cluster of 3 drops tumbling together, smaller ones clinging to a larger one as though they didn't want to be apart. "A family," I whispered, "a family taking the road together." I saw them in my mind, a bear cub between its parents, splashing through puddles, giggling while holding their paws. Or maybe a group of hedgehogs rolling along, noses wiggling, staying close in the rain. The sight filled me with such warmth that I let out a contented sigh, fogging the glass with my breath. The drops moved endlessly one after another, forming new patterns and new tales. I couldn't help drifting into a daydream, the kind that slides into your thoughts like a soft blanket. I imagined the traveler finding a little inn at the edge of the rain. Inside, a fire glowed, and the friends he'd met along the way were already there, sipping mugs of honeyed tea. The family sat near the hearth, the little ones asleep on cushions, while the grown-ups whispered quiet stories of the past. In this dream, I padded into the inn myself, ears dripping from the rain, paws muddy but welcome. The innkeeper, perhaps a wise old owl, greeted me warmly and brought me a cushion by the fire. The traveler waved, the friends scooted over to make space, and the family smiled as I settled down. For a moment, all the drops I'd watched on the glass were gathered there, turned into cozy companions. It was the kind of dream a dog never wanted to wake from. A gust of wind rattled the window, and I blinked back into the present. Outside, the rain was still steady, forming ever more stories. I leaned closer, eager not to miss a single one. A drop darted down like a sprinter, passing everyone else in a hurry. I imagined a fox bounding through the rain, too excited to slow down. Perhaps he was racing to deliver a message, or maybe he just loved the feeling of running, of being quick and free. Another drop wobbled side to side, zigzagging as though chasing its own tail. That one, I decided, must be a puppy like me. A puppy who hadn't yet learned to walk in a straight line, too delighted by the world to keep to one path. I laughed softly, my ears flopping with the motion. Some drops joined into small streams, flowing downward together like processions. I saw them as parades, villagers carrying lanterns, musicians playing fiddles, children skipping. Others split apart, drifting in different directions, like old friends parting ways with a promise to meet again. The window pane became a stage, and I, Bramble, was its only audience. Yet it felt like the greatest show on earth, gentle, quiet, full of heart. I realized then that watching the rain was more than a pastime. It wasn't simply waiting for the clouds to clear or the sun to return. It was something deeper, like reading a book written not with ink, but with water. Each drop was a letter, each stream a sentence, each merging a story. And I, sitting here on my wide window seat, was the reader. The thought made me proud. After all, not every dog can read, but I had discovered a language just for me, a secret drippy alphabet of tales falling from the sky. The rain continued, softer now, as if the storm had sighed and relaxed. The drops moved slower, gentler, taking their time. I let my eyes grow heavy as I followed them. In the quiet rhythm of water against glass, I felt myself slipping back into that dream inn. The traveler lifted his walking stick in greeting. The friends offered me a biscuit from their pack. The family made room by the hearth, and I, with my soft brown ears and wagging tail, felt that I belonged in every story. Because maybe that's what rain really does. It reminds you that every journey, every meeting, every family has a place. Even a small dog in a little cottage. Especially him. With that thought, I curled deeper into the window seat, nose against the cushion, listening as the rain turned its pages outside. And before long I was fast asleep, dreaming not of chasing butterflies, but of reading the endless stories carried in the rain. I had just finished telling myself another one of my raindrop stories when I heard it, tap, tap, tap. At first I thought it was only the rain trying a new rhythm against the glass, but then it came again, lighter, more precise. I raised my head from the cushion. There, perched on the window ledge, was a tiny sparrow. His feathers were damp from the drizzle, sticking out at odd angles, and his black eyes blinked hopefully at me. "Well now," I said, tail thumping once against the window seat. "You look as though you could use a warm fire." I nudged the latch with my paw and pushed the window open just enough for him to hop inside. He shook himself once, scattering little droplets onto the sill, and then hopped to the back of a chair near the hearth. "Much obliged," he chirped, fluffing his chest feathers. "It's a soggy world out there today." "Indeed," I agreed, curling back into my seat. "You're welcome here as long as you like. I was just entertaining myself with the rain." The sparrow tilted his head. "Entertaining yourself? How?" So I told him. I explained how the raindrops on the window became little travelers in my mind, wandering roads, meeting friends, joining families. I described brave Benny, the hesitant drop who finally let go, and Captain Rush, who always sped fastest down the glass. The sparrow's eyes sparkled, and he gave a delighted flutter of his wings. Stories in the rain, what a charming idea. I only ever thought of it as weather, not as a tale to be told. "It helps pass the hours," I said modestly, though my tail wagged harder at his praise. "Each drop seems to carry a piece of a story, if you care to imagine it." The bird hopped closer to the fire, his voice a cheerful trill. "Would you share some with me?" And so I did. I pointed with my nose to a drop meandering down the right side of the pane. "That one," I said, "is a lonely traveler searching for a friend." We both watched as another drop slid into its path and joined it. "Ah!" I barked happily. "And look, he found one." The sparrow chirped a bright note, like laughter in birdsong. He leaned forward, completely absorbed. We spent a long while like that, watching the window together. I told the stories, and he added little flourishes, imagining what kind of songs the travelers sang, what berries they might stop to eat, how the clouds above them must look. By the time the sparrow was dry and fluffed, we had spun a whole patchwork of tales. It might have ended there, but word travels quickly in the forest, especially when a sparrow is involved. The very next rainy afternoon, as I dozed with one eye on the glass, I heard a different sort of sound at my door, a polite, rapid knock. I padded over and opened it to find Rabbit, ears slicked down with drizzle, holding a small bundle of clover leaves. "Good day, Bramble," she said shyly. "Sparrow told me you tell stories about raindrops. I thought perhaps I could listen too." My tail wagged so hard I nearly knocked the door into her. "Of course, come in. There's firelight and tea, and the rain is quite talkative today." Rabbit stepped inside, shaking droplets from her fur, and nestled herself on a cushion near the hearth. Sparrow was already waiting, perched on the mantel as though he'd lived there all his life. So I began again, telling them of raindrops who were dancers, twirling down the glass, and of one drop who fancied himself a baker, rolling along until he found two companions, and together becoming a plump little bun. Rabbit's whiskers twitched with amusement, and Sparrow gave approving chirps. By the time the rain had slowed, my little cottage seemed brighter somehow, not just from the fire, but from the warmth of company. The following week, Hedgehog knocked timidly. He carried no bundle, only a hopeful expression. "Sparrow and Rabbit told me," he began, shuffling his paws. I didn't let him finish. "Yes, yes, come in. There's always space for another listener." Hedgehog curled himself on a soft rug. and when I began describing a pair of raindrops as two hedgehogs rolling together down a hill, he chuckled so loudly his spines rustled. And then one blustery afternoon, there was the fox. He was more cautious, his amber eyes sharp as he stood just outside my door. "I heard," he said, "that you spin stories out of raindrops. Is that true, Bramble?" "It is," I said, meeting his gaze without fear. "Would you care to join us?" He hesitated, perhaps unused to being invited, then nodded and stepped inside. His tail dripped on the floor, but I didn't mind. Every guest left their trace, and I cherished each one. Soon my little cottage became a gathering place whenever the sky turned gray. The kettle whistled often, filling mugs with warmth. Cushions were shuffled to make space. The fire popped and crackled, casting golden light across fur and feather alike. I would begin, pointing to the window. "See that drop there, the one zigzagging? That's a fox cub playing hide-and-seek in the grass." Fox would grin, eyes gleaming, and add, "And when the cub leaps from his hiding place, he startles a whole flock of sparrows into the air." Sparrow would chirp indignantly but laugh all the same. Rabbit would twitch her nose and suggest that the cub eventually shares a picnic with the flock, because all good stories should end with a meal. Hedgehog, ever thoughtful, might add that the cub brings a lantern too, because journeys feel safer in warm light. Together, we built tales that none of us could have imagined alone. The rain outside was no longer just a backdrop. It was a living storyteller, and we were its eager translators. Sometimes when the stories grew especially good, we forgot the rain entirely. The cottage filled with soft laughter, the smell of herbs, the crackle of logs. It felt in those moments as though the storm outside was part of our own joy, as though the whole forest leaned in to listen with us. And always, when the afternoon grew late and the rain finally tired itself out, my friends would leave, damp paws and feathers trailing water across my floor, their hearts a little lighter. "Until next rain," Rabbit would say, tying her cloak tighter. "Until next tale," Hedgehog would add, waddling out the door. "Until next time," Fox murmured with a sly smile that had softened into warmth. Then the cottage would fall quiet again, save for the sigh of the fire and the last patters of drizzle. I'd curl back into my window seat, paws tucked, ears drooping, tail giving one last contented wag. It struck me then that my stories had leapt from the glass and found lives beyond my imagination. They had brought my neighbors in, drawn by the promise of something simple but rare: gentleness, shared warmth, and the magic of seeing the world as more than it first appears. The rain no longer felt lonely. Neither did I. And in the glow of the hearth, with Sparrow dozing on the mantel and the faint echo of laughter still ringing in the beams of the roof, I realized something important. My little cottage was not just mine anymore. It had become, drop by drop, story by story, a home for everyone who sought comfort in the rain. The storm began on a Thursday. At first I thought it was just another passing shower, a little music on the roof, a handful of stories to be read on the window. But by the next morning the clouds had thickened like heavy blankets, and the rain did not pause. By Saturday the meadow was misty, the trees dripping steadily, and the whole town seemed wrapped in a gray hush. I did not mind. After all, the window seat was made for such times. But not all my neighbors shared my fondness for long rains. Sparrow was the first to flutter in. His feathers clung together and his wings drooped. He landed on the mantel and gave a weary chirp. "Oh, Bramble," he sighed. "The sky has no end. I miss the blue. I miss the sunshine warming the branches. My songs sound dull in this weather." I wagged my tail softly, nudging the kettle closer to the fire. "Come now, sit by the flame, warm yourself. The rain isn't empty. It's only filled with different stories." Before I could begin, Rabbit hopped inside, ears plastered to her head. "I feel cooped up," she confessed, shaking droplets onto my rug. "I want to stretch my legs in the clover, but everything is mud. What use is a long storm if it only makes me restless?" Not long after, Hedgehog shuffled in, his spine sprinkled with rain. He looked especially gloomy, muttering, "The ground smells too wet. My den feels damp. I can't get comfortable." Finally, Fox appeared in the doorway, sleek fur darkened with drizzle. He tilted his head with a half-smile. "The forest is dull without the sun," he said. "No shadows to chase, no warmth to stretch in. I suppose I'll have to endure this dreariness." They all gathered around my hearth, eyes heavy, spirits sagging. For a moment I felt the weight of their gloom pressing into the room. I lifted my nose, sniffed the air thick with rain, and then turned back to the window. The drops were still there, tumbling and trickling, weaving their silver roads down the glass. "Perhaps," I said, curling back into my seat, "what we need is a story or two." The others looked at me, uncertain but curious. I pawed gently at the glass, pointing to a raindrop wobbling down slowly, resisting the pull of gravity. "See that one? That's a little mouse, braver than he knows. He's been invited to a feast but has never traveled so far. Every step feels too big. But still he goes, because friendship is waiting at the end." Sparrow tilted his head. "Does he make it?" "Oh yes," I assured him. "He reaches the feast, where lanterns glow and warm bread is shared. His fear melts into laughter, and he realizes courage is only taking the next small step." Rabbit leaned closer to the glass. "What about that pair?" she asked, pointing to two drops sliding parallel. "Ah," I said, "those are two dancers who practice together. Sometimes they step on each other's toes, sometimes they slip. But they laugh and keep moving, and by the end they twirl so beautifully that the whole village claps." Rabbit's nose twitched, a smile tugging her whiskers. Another drop sped boldly down the pane, leaving a streak behind. I wagged my tail. "And there! That's a fox cub racing through the rain. He thinks the storm is his playground, each puddle a treasure to leap across. When he finally tumbles into the biggest puddle of all, the splash is so grand that the clouds themselves laugh. Fox gave a small chuckle, his eyes softening. "I like that one," he admitted. I told more stories. Each raindrop became a little tale, a hedgehog rolling down a grassy hill until he found the sweetest strawberry, a sparrow flying through mist only to discover a hidden meadow where wildflowers still bloomed. Each drop was comfort, courage, or friendship woven into silver. As I spoke, the cottage grew warmer, not only from the fire, but from the change in my friends. Sparrow chirped little notes between my sentences. Rabbit's ears lifted, less droopy now. Hedgehog's sighs turned into chuckles. Fox, who usually spoke with sly edges, leaned back with a look of ease. By evening the rain still drummed heavily, but inside we had forgotten gloom. Instead, we had filled the day with gentle adventures. The storm lasted on. Day after day the sky stayed gray. The meadow turned into a patchwork of puddles, and the wind sometimes rattled the shutters. Yet each afternoon, without fail, my friends came back. And each afternoon we sat together, spinning the rain into a book of tales. One day I pointed out a trio of drops joining together. "That's a family building a little cottage. Each helps in their own way. One gathers sticks, one carries moss, one arranges flowers by the door. It may be small, but when the lantern is lit, the whole forest knows it is home." Another time I saw a drop slip down slowly, pausing every inch. "That one," I told Hedgehog, "is a hedgehog painting pictures on fallen leaves. He takes his time, adding dots and swirls, until each leaf is a masterpiece carried away by the wind." Hedgehog's spines rustled proudly at the thought. Even when the rain pounded harder, when thunder grumbled across the sky and lightning painted the cottage in white, we stayed calm. I told them, "This storm is not here to frighten us. It is here to remind us that even in noise and shadow there are stories of light." So I gave the thunder a voice, a giant bear laughing deep in his belly. I gave the lightning a brush, an artist painting quick silver strokes across the clouds. Suddenly the storm became less an enemy, more a playmate putting on a grand performance. The days blurred together, not because they were gray, but because they were filled with warmth. We shared bread, tea, and laughter. Sparrow sometimes sang little songs to accompany my stories. Rabbit added cheerful endings. Fox brought sly twists that made us laugh harder. Hedgehog offered wise lessons, small truths tucked neatly into the tales. And slowly all of them realized what I had known all along. Rainy days are not empty days. They are quiet gifts, waiting to be unwrapped through patience and imagination. By the time the storm finally broke, when the clouds at last thinned and the first shy sunlight spilled across the meadow, we stood together at the window, watching golden beams fall onto the drenched earth. "Strange," Sparrow said softly, "but I almost feel I'll miss the rain." Rabbit nodded. "Me too. It wasn't so dreary after all." Hedgehog smiled. "It gave us stories I'll remember whenever I hear drops on my den." Fox stretched luxuriously, his fur glinting in the new sun. Perhaps I'll even look forward to the next storm. As for me, I only wagged my tail, because I knew the truth. Whether the sky is bright or gray, there are always stories waiting. And sometimes it takes a storm to bring friends together long enough to discover them. I padded back to my window seat, curled up, and let the sunlight warm my ears. The storm had ended, but its gift lingered. My cottage now held not just the memory of raindrops, but the laughter of friends, the comfort of shared hours, and the gentle knowledge that even the longest storm can be turned into light when seen with the heart. When the storm finally loosened its grip and sunlight spilled across the meadow, the whole forest seemed to exhale. Branches lifted, dripping with diamonds. The grass bowed low, heavy with dew, and the air smelled fresh and sweet, like pine needles and clover tea. I sat in my window seat, ears flopping lazily, tail draped over the cushion. For the first time in days, the glass in front of me was dry. I should have been glad, I suppose, but part of me missed the lively trails of raindrops, their zigzags and tumbles, their tiny tails whispered against the pane. It wasn't long before my friends came. Sparrow swooped in through the open window, his feathers glinting bronze in the sun. Rabbit bounded down the path, her paws leaving damp marks on the soil. Hedgehog waddled behind her, sniffing the air as though cataloging every new scent the storm had left. And Fox, sleek and confident, slipped in last with his tail trailing a streak of water across my floor. They all gathered around my hearth, but the fire was unlit. There was no need for it now. The air was warm and golden, and for the first time in many afternoons, the kettle rested quiet. Sparrow gave a little trill and fluttered to the sill. "Bramble," he said, "I must thank you. Without your stories, these last days would have been long and weary. Instead, they were, well, almost joyful." Rabbit nodded, her ears perked. "I thought I hated the rain, but you showed me it can be gentle, full of meaning even. I'll never hear it the same way again." Hedgehog shuffled his paws on the rug. I had been grumbling more than I'd like to admit. Yet each story you told made me forget my damp den, and think instead of adventures, laughter, and courage. You turned a storm into a gift, Bramble. Fox, never one to show too much softness, gave me a sly grin. "You've changed the way we see storms. Who knew a dog on a window seat could outwit gloom?" My tail wagged so hard against the cushion that it made a steady thump, thump, thump. Their words wrapped around me like the coziest blanket. I hadn't thought much of what I'd been doing. To me, telling stories from raindrops was simply a way to pass time. But to hear my friends speak, it had been more. Sparrow hopped closer, puffing his chest. "We should make it a tradition," he declared. "Whenever it rains, we'll gather here, by your fire, with your tea to hear your raindrop stories." Rabbit's whiskers twitched. "Yes, a rainy day tradition. None of us will have to feel lonely or restless again." Fox nodded, stretching on the rug. "Rain no longer means boredom or gloom. It will mean firelight, laughter, and Bramble's tales." Hedgehog added softly. And company, that's the best part. My chest swelled so full it felt like my heart might wag along with my tail. I looked around my little cottage, the worn rug by the hearth, the cushions that had been squashed by paws and tails, the window seat that had always been my special spot. Now it was more than mine. It had become a gathering place, a circle of warmth that would outlast even the longest storm. We spent the day outside, stretching our legs under the return of the sun, but all the while I carried their promise in my thoughts. A tradition, a circle of friendship born from the simplest thing, drops on glass. That night, when the meadow darkened and stars pricked through the thinning clouds, I curled into my window seat once more. The glass was cool beneath my nose, reflecting the moonlight. I thought of the days past, of Captain Rush, Brave Benny, Nap Time Nell, and all the others whose stories had kept us company. I thought of Sparrow's laughter, Rabbit's smiles, Hedgehog's chuckles, Fox's softened eyes. I thought, too, of the storm itself, not as something heavy or cruel, but as a gentle teacher. It had shown us patience, closeness, and how to find light even when the sky was dark. I dozed, dreaming of drops turning into dancers and travelers, until the softest of sounds woke me. Tap, tap, tap. At first I thought it was only a dream, but when I blinked my eyes open, I saw it. Fresh raindrops beginning to gather on the window. The sky, which had seemed clear only hours before, was once again graying. A new shower had come, quieter this time, but insistent. And oh, how I wagged. The first drop trickled down like a timid traveler testing the road. Another darted across quickly, eager to meet him. A third wobbled, unsure of its path, until the others pulled it along. I could already see their stories unfolding, tales of courage, of friendship, of journeys shared. Behind me, I heard a flutter of wings. Sparrow had returned, settling on the sill with a knowing look. Rabbit appeared soon after, knocking softly at the door before hopping inside. Hedgehog waddled in with his usual sniff, and Fox slipped in last, eyes gleaming. They didn't need an invitation. They didn't need the kettle to be whistling or the fire to be blazing. All they needed was the rain, the window, and the promise we had made. We gathered once more, shoulder to shoulder, paw to paw, feather to fur, letting the drops on the glass lead us into gentle tales. As I curled in my window seat, tail thumping softly, I felt the warm truth settle in me. What had begun as my quiet pastime had blossomed into something greater, a tradition, a circle of friends bound not by weather, but by the joy of seeing stories where others saw only clouds. And so the rain tapped its rhythm, each drop a tiny storyteller waiting to be heard. We listened together, and the cottage glowed with laughter, tea, and firelight. I rested my chin on my paws, ears drooping in contentment, and thought, let it rain. For in every drop there is a tale, and in every tale, a home. And that ends tonight's meditation. You're welcome to stay for a bit longer if you like. Have a beautiful night until next time.